employees via chat. Hello, everybody. Welcome to this week's episode of Great Employees Matter, the podcast that focuses on employees, helping them become better, helping them move from average to great, and working with companies and teaching them how to appreciate and motivate and nurture and take care of their most valuable asset, their employees. We are honored this week to have in our studio Soleil Klein. Soleil is the founder of a company called Freedom HCM Solutions. For those of you that aren't familiar with HCM, HCM is human capital management. So it's the top tier of the HR industry, if you will. She has over 2 decades of experience in HCM. She is an Army veteran. Thank you very much for your service. We've had several on our show, so we appreciate you. We appreciate that you all are able to come on our show and willing to talk to us. So we're going to do what we do, which is basically just have a conversation with Soleil, let you guys go ahead and enter questions or comments in the chat room. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kobe because he's really good at getting this thing started.
Well, thank you, Jimmy, and welcome everybody. Welcome Lloyd, welcome Soleil, and to all of our people that's joining us today. So thank you. Every week, 2 o'clock, Great Employees Matter, greatness, excellence, motivation. Please make sure you like, subscribe, share if you like the content, engage with us. We love it, and come grow with us. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started with Miss Soleil. Miss Soleil, how are you today?
Very good. It's actually decent out here in Vegas. Not too bad.
Okay, I don't know what you call decent. I'm already burning up, but I like it. I'm not gonna lie. As I've been out here for a couple of years, I actually like the heat more than I like the cold. So you can manage it, I think, a little better. But anyway, with that being said, are you from Vegas?
No, I'm not. I'm actually from California.
Oh, whereabouts in California? We're native. See, I told you when you got here, we have similar journeys. I'm from California as well, yeah. Born and raised. Where are you from?
All over the state. So my dad worked for the California State Prison System. Okay. And so in order to get a promotion, he transferred. So I was much like a military brat. Every 2 years we moved. And so I've been in multiple locations. The most interesting location, or the most notable location, was I lived on the grounds of San Quentin.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, not as a prisoner, I don't think, but
no,
okay.
No.
All right.
We had them doing our yard, though. So that was when I was in 3rd grade.
Mm-hmm. Wow, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So tell me a little bit about your childhood in California and growing up. We know you bounced around. Did that make it difficult for you in the school setting?
It did. Back in those days, my mom was a homemaker. So I was the only child for 6 years. Then we had my sister. And so she kept us at home a lot. So I didn't go to daycare or anything like that. So not very sociable. And so when you move from school to school, you find someone who's very shy and has a difficult name to pronounce. No teacher ever got my name right, just as a by the way. And so it did make it very difficult until I think I started coming into my own around junior high school.
Okay. And junior high school, what did you do after school? What did you do for work right when you got out of school? Did you go to college? Did you graduate? Did you go right into the workforce?
No, I actually, I did delayed entry program. And I joined the Army Reserves.
Oh, nice. Thank you for your service,
yeah.
By the way. What made you want to go and join the reserves?
Well, I wanted to join the reserves because I wasn't sure if I wanted a full-time commitment, shall we say. And so I decided to do the reserves, and that was a great choice for me at the time. And I was in it for 8 years. And all it was, because of the time that I enlisted, it was a time of peace. There was no wars or anything like that going on. So I just did my weekend drills, and, a couple weeks during the summer, you did your camping and all that kind of stuff. Okay. But it was really nice. I worked for a combat support hospital, and I learned a lot of structure in my life from the military that I take to this day.
Nice. Mm-hmm. When did you first realize HR could be more than paperwork and actually shape a company's culture and be part of what you do primarily?
Well, I started working for a nonprofit and I was hired as an admin assistant to 15 retail stores. And my boss was a managing director of retail. She decided, or she was asked, to become the director of HR. Knowing the skill level that I had with the attention to detail and all that kind of stuff, she knew that I would get things done. She asked me to move with her. So I had no experience in HR at all. And I got a real live look, shall we say, on how HR is run and how it should be generating that employee culture and stuff like that. So I kind of got my feet wet when she brought me over with her, and that's how I got my HR experience. I started out as an HR assistant and moved my way up to HR coordinator to an HR generalist. So I was in the span of 10 years. Yeah.
I was going to say, was that pretty early on in your employment career that you moved up pretty quick, or did that happen over time and then you moved up and then that 10-year span brought you where you're at now?
Yeah. So it was, I started working there, I think when I was like 26. And so in the 10-year span, that's when I started moving up. They saw the level of detail that I had and put me in charge of more of the stuff that was making sure that things were set up properly, with a process and procedure was a major part of it, because prior to us being in HR, there was a lot of things that got missed.
Yeah, and we focus on employees here. Mm-hmm. And so, Jim, our company, we love the phrase figure it out factor. Matter of fact, we have a program called the Figure It Out Factor that we actually educate companies on so that they can teach their team leadership. And so what tools or framework help you decode messy people problems and turn them into fair policies as an HR specialist?
Well, I was in charge of, first things first, my boss put me in charge of, auditing invoices and stuff like that, because we worked for a nonprofit and we were losing, I want to say at least 10 grand a month because things were not properly terminated or employees were not enrolled in benefits and that sort of a thing. So she had me with a strong benefit focus. And in doing that, that also built employee relations, because I met with employees explaining to them, and that was something that was never done before, was that they never had an idea of how their benefits worked, and that sort of a thing. So with me being put in that position and understanding how those policies worked, it really did drive employee engagement. And they felt more comfortable coming in and asking me anything if they had some sort of issue, and as a result of that, it moved up to where I got into FMLA and all that fun stuff, because I was a trusted source in HR to ensure that the employees were taken care of in their time of need.
No, that's awesome. Because it's very difficult for any kind of upper management, especially HR, because employees usually think that there's a problem if you ever have to talk to this person or that person. I mean, employees hear the word compliance and they think red tape. What's one myth you can burst first to show it's actually their safety net compliance?
What is the
one myth you can bust about the word compliance and help them understand that it's actually a safety net? It's not something that they should think it's red tape or
right. Now I know where you're going with it.
Yeah.
So, the myth is everyone thinks that HR is there to, as far as compliance, is there to be kind of a ruler type of a deal, and that's why they get scared of HR, because they're, the main thing is with that level of communication not being there, they think, oh, I'm going to get written up or I'm going to get fired because I'm not following the rules, that sort of thing. And that's a huge myth about coming to HR. We actually relabeled, now that I think about it, our HR department. We called it people services because we were there to serve the people, shall we say. And we were trying to be less intimidating about it, and when you do have compliance issues come up, like employee relations, that sort of thing, and an investigation has to be done, they're very fearful. They're thinking they're going to lose their job or that sort of thing. And so, being able to develop that relationship so that they're not as fearful, it can take some time.
See, I actually love that you said instead of HR, call it people relations,
People services.
people services.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's so much better, because if an employee feels like they're being serviced properly, then it's different than if they feel like they're being compliance stolen. That makes
Yeah.
sense.
And something that, people have to understand is, bottom line, we are there to protect them, and that, especially if an employee comes to us with an issue and that sort of thing with the investigations, we're not there to, not get it addressed. We're there to protect the employee from anything. And so that's what they have to realize. And that's how we serve our employees.
And so, in your experience, protecting employees, did you find yourself being there more for employees who were compliant than employees who were causing a lot of problems inside of the store and deserved your protection?
Yeah. So, you a lot of employees, they don't know, because they may not have been properly trained, that sort of thing, that maybe certain things are not okay to do in the workplace, right? And so you have to look at the whole picture and not just the employee with the issue. You have to look at, okay, what, was it reported? What was the supervisor's intake on it? And look at the whole picture. You can't just, say, oh, compliant employees and non-compliant employees, because the employee that may be non-compliant, it may be a training issue.
Yeah.
When in that case, you train them. You
I-
don't, you don't
You know what?
necessarily,
I always tend to think it's always a compliance issue, and I'm going
Uh-huh.
to use that as a segue to go over to my business partner, Jimmy, because I know I'm taking up a lot of time, but I like talking to HR because I
Mhm.
come from that environment, being a corporate manager for 20 plus years. And my position, I worked directly with HR. In my opinion, I had to create a partnership with HR in order for me to be able to run things in my stores properly. So I
Mhm.
can talk to you forever, but with that, I'm going to go over to Jimmy. Jimmy, are you ready to get on the mic?
I am, and I think that's a great segue, Soleil.
Mhm.
You talked about protecting. One of the things that we here at Great Employees Matter believe is that most employees think that HR is there to police, and
Mhm.
we believe that they're there to promote and protect. So
Right.
I'm glad you said protection, right?
Mhm.
It's the HR's responsibility to make sure that that employee, through their department, through their manager, through literature, through training, that that employee knows what their expectations are. When they fall short of their expectations, help them get over the hump,
Right.
whatever the issues are, and to be there as an advocate for the employee, more so than the employer. Obviously, you're protecting the employer at the same time. And so I have a question for you. You had made the comment employees don't often know, or sometimes don't know, the certain things that are expected from them, and
Mhm.
that can create problems. I suspect, because of my work history, that there are employers, owners, managers, anybody in leadership that also don't know what their expectations are, both from a compliance, from a federal compliance perspective and from a corporate perspective. And so sometimes you can get people in the highest levels of management almost unwittingly abusing their employees because they're not paying. I'm the owner. I don't need to know what sexual harassment is about,
Right.
right? I can fire whoever I want for whatever reason I want to, right? So
Mhm.
how does an HR professional bridge that gap between the employee and the employer, especially when the employer is not compliant?
Right. No, I totally get that. I've had several talks with leadership, on things that they can do and things that they can't do. Right. A prime example of that is, offering another employee in the same position an increase over someone who's worked longer. There's so much discriminatory things that they can do. And that's why the HR department is great, because we kind of set the tone as before you do anything, before you promote, increase anyone, or anything or terminate even, you need to talk to us first. And that's the reason, because we are that advocate for employees. But you're right, leadership doesn't necessarily know compliance law, and as a result of that, any mistake that they make could cause huge penalties that they would have to pay, and that really hurts the company's bottom line. And not only that, it's also, if you really think about it, it hurts, you as a leader are driving the culture of the company. And so if you are not treating your employees right, or that sort of thing, then you are not going to have what you need to generate that profit.
It is so expensive to mistreat your employees.
Yes, it is. It's not cheap.
We also have some affinity. I was an Air Force brat. Didn't travel as much as a lot of Air Force brats did. I was born in Okinawa. My mom met my stepfather, who I always knew as my father. I didn't know he wasn't my father until I was 12. And so we were stationed at Kadena Air Force Base in Okinawa, moved to Reno, Nevada, went to California, spent a short stint at Travis, went back to Okinawa, and then ultimately came here to Las Vegas, and my dad was stationed at Nellis. So, that I feel for you when you say that we as military brats, even though it wasn't directly that it is hard to establish relationships, to establish friendships as a kid. And sometimes that carries over into your adult life and into the workplace, and being able to assimilate and socialize and do all that sort of stuff. So I appreciate that you've gone down that path. What is that you learned through your military experience that you've been able to take to your HR experience?
Process and procedure. I'm telling you that you had a schedule, right? And you always had certain ways on how to do certain things. And that is the one thing that has stuck with me even throughout my whole life. And I'm very grateful for, because I learned that from being enlisted. Yeah. I didn't learn that from home.
Structure, right?
Structure. Yep. Yeah. That's exactly it. Okay. So.
And then before I turn you over to Lloyd, who is our compliance officer, so you guys can speak compliance to compliance, I was going to ask you something, and I have no idea what it was. I apologize. And I had notes on it and everything. I don't know where it is. So I apologize for that. Lloyd?
Jimmy, that's why I'm having that senior GPS installed in your car. It not only tells you how to get there, but reminds you of what you went there for.
Oh, so, I remember.
See?
Thank you. So we haven't spoken yet about your introduction to and ultimate expertise in technology, because there's a lot of technology in HR, right?
Yes,
especially
there is.
When you're consulting businesses, the smaller businesses that have no idea where to start. They're looking for payroll systems, they're looking for HR systems, everything, right?
Right.
Where did you get your technological background?
So when I was the Goodwill is where I worked at for that nonprofit. They actually had 3 system implementations in the span of 10 years.
Wow.
Right. And so because of my process and procedure and that sort of thing, attention to detail, my boss knew that I would excel in something like that. So she always had me at the head of those projects to ensure that we had things set up properly. Now, I'm not saying that everything got set up properly from the very get-go, because something that you also have to, that I've come across, is you have people that are wanting to keep things the same. They don't like change, right? And so when you have a system in place, I noticed that even with some employers, it's very hard to make that switch from something you've been manually doing to something that can be set up as a workflow through an HCM system and streamline their processes and cause them less work. I always, the famous saying is, well, why do you do it this way? Well, it's because that's the way we've always done it. Right. And so having to have that also in place as I was implementing systems. Hey, I would really like to do this piece of it. Well, we've always done it this way, and having to navigate through all of that as well. But that's where I got my basis for understanding how systems work and how much work it can save if you have them set up properly. In addition, it saves you compliance wise because it does have these systems does have the capability of tracking the employee record, making sure employees are terminated in the right fashion, onboarding and all of that, and going from applicant to onboarding to having them, as an employee. It keeps records of everything and it just makes things so much more simpler. And as a result of that, I've really fell in love with learning the technology piece and building the logic out for it.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
Lloyd?
Yeah, I just wanted to start off by saying how lucky, Soleil, that your clients are to have you, because it's every company lawyer's dream to have a company with real policies and procedures. It saves the company a lot of liability. You have clear things laid out. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to do it. And then if somebody doesn't do it or somebody messes it up, the company is not responsible. So kudos to you. They're very lucky to have you.
Thank you.
I want to switch gears entirely. I have a couple of things that I wanted to talk about. Can you just tell me generally, what is the biggest issue facing employers these days? What are you seeing more of?
The biggest issues I want to say honestly is when it comes to compliance and understanding it, because there's new laws, unfortunately, that come out, I want to say, on a quarterly basis, and keeping up on the compliance on what the government can come in and tell you, the employer, what you have to do, right? And so that is the biggest huge hurdle that I see. And honestly, it's them not getting the education that they need when it comes to that. That's where I come in and I can give them updates on the different laws and what they must do. So like, for example, it just came out a couple of years ago that even the smallest employers have to offer 401k, and you go around and you talk to these employers these days and they have no idea about this law, and they can be penalized heavily, having to pay the government huge fees for not being compliant in offering their employees a retirement program. So that is the hugest hurdle that I see, is just, not understanding the compliance that comes out on even a quarterly basis.
And flipping that question, what about from the employee side? What's the biggest employee issue you're seeing these days?
Oh, it's the culture of employees these days. I was just talking about this. Nowadays, ever since COVID happened, everyone is used to working from home and having that kind of a aspect and that sort of thing. So it gets really hard to have employees even show up, or even if they do work from home. I'm not saying that all employees do this, but you do notice that employees are not necessarily working from home. They're off doing errands, they're off doing different things and that sort of thing. So that's where it gets really hard with the culture that we have today, is getting those quality employees that want to do the job and want to understand how it works, and also the entitlement. Well, this person's making this much, so I should be making this much, so that's also where you find a lot of the employee issues that we've come across these days.
I'd like to ask you some questions now about benefits, and specifically, which benefits are you finding are important to the employee? So the first one I have is a 401k, which you indicate now that everybody's got to offer. But how important is that actually to the employee?
Depends on the age. Just saying, a younger employee, bottom line, they're not going to want to enroll in it. They truly aren't, because they don't plan for the future, right? You get someone my age, it's something that I'm definitely looking at. It's explaining to the employee. It also depends on if there's an employer match, that sort of thing. You have to explain to them, hey, it's free money. They're giving you, say, 3% if the employer chooses to do that. But it really depends on the age of the employee on when 401k matters. Younger generation, not so much.
And is the answer the same for health insurance?
Yes. And the reason why is, well, and it also depends on if they have pre-existing or any sort of health condition. But the reason why is because health insurance is super expensive. Even if an employee is offered to where they have to pay $100 a paycheck, they're going to be looking at it. That's $100 out of my paycheck. And I don't see the doctor. I don't need it. That sort of thing. Right. And then of course you get, people that are, in their 20s and they're like thinking of maybe starting families or that sort of a thing where they want the health insurance. But, it can be very costly on the employee and the employer.
Now, the last one that we already kind of touched about, you were kind enough to discuss already, work at home. There's a big shift in work at home after COVID. But I know that it's still important to a lot of people. What are you finding about that?
Yeah, a lot of people, they want, now that they've gotten a taste of being able to work from home, they want that ability to do that. And I'm one of those as well, that I was able to work from home since even before COVID. I would have a hybrid type of a situation where I didn't necessarily have to be tied to the office. Ever since everything went on the cloud, you can access anything anywhere as long as you have that internet connection. And so for those positions that you can do that, I don't see an issue with why not if you can trust your employees to do what they need to do. The only issue that I have is being monitoring those employees that may not necessarily be doing what they need to do and putting a discipline process in so that you can speak with that employee in the event that things are not getting done.
Yeah, unless you've either got the metrics to be able to measure their performance or you've got a camera. I know some employers that actually physically require the work at home employees to have their camera on at all times. So unless you've got
There's
one of those
different ways, it doesn't have to be a camera, but there are different ways, that you can definitely monitor having the employee online. That's why I said these days it's really not too hard to allow if the position allows for it. Now, if you're a salesperson, for example, and you need to meet with clients, I know that there is a lot of Zoom where you can meet with clients online and or prospects online, but there's so much more with a personal relationship first before you start doing the Zoom calls with those prospects or potential clients. Does that make sense?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
And before I turn you back over to Kobe and Jimmy for real questions, tell me your best HR story, the one that's going to have us all laughing for days. What's your absolute best HR story?
Oh, that's a very good question. It's just been a minute. It's been over 10 years. The only thing that I can think of is, having someone that, went on leave and, I was working with the employee and unfortunately it was a tragic reason why they went on leave. It was a health condition. But being able to support that employee through that whole process and the employee was very grateful, almost in tears, being able to understand that they could come back once their issue had been resolved and that sort of thing, and that we were there for them as the employer.
Wow, that's a great story.
I love those.
I'm clapping over here.
Yeah.
That's a great story. Yay.
Yep. Those
Jimmy, Kobe, I'll turn it back to you.
Off the top of my head, but mainly taking care of the employee.
Great. Sir Kobe?
Yeah, I want to address some of the comments that's coming in right now. We got a question from Dale. Dale, good to see you. Welcome and thank you for participating like you normally do. You're one of our favorites. But he's asking, what do you feel has been the biggest strength that has helped your career success? That's from Dale Shelton.
Oh, the biggest strength. The biggest strength I would say is being able to have that opportunity to do what I do and the mentorship that I've had in my life, being able to reach what I do and learn exactly the different systems and be given that opportunity. That has to be the biggest strength, is finding someone that is able to open that door for you. And once that door is open, just you learning, um, getting in touch with the different vendors and being able to, um, you know, talk with them and have those contacts for any sort of glitches that happen with systems. I have a number of contacts I can reach out to and say, hey, you run across this before? Networking with people that are also in the same field so that you also can learn from each other.
Yeah, so I'm going to switch gears a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, Dale, for that question. Everybody else is here. Buddy says hello. Bonafide, our normal, is in here, and he's acknowledging some of the conversations. So thank you guys for watching, listening, and liking our stuff. But my question for you is, there's a lot of things going on with technology and employer and employee and things like that. Fast forward 5 years, what single HR skill will employees and leaders absolutely need to master and stay career resilient?
Oh, you have to master technology. Things are going directly to the cloud, it's also just business. But having a good HRIS system, or, payroll and HR system in place and mastering that will save your company thousands of dollars. It will keep you in compliance, and having good employee records and that sort of thing. That would be the thing to master, because I can tell you, spreadsheets, manual processes, those are going away so quickly. And so get on board with technology.
Do you have anything specific? Like, are you using any AI tools or anything like that? And how do you feel about that?
Yeah, so I definitely use AI, definitely in my business, right? And AI is definitely something that is in the HR technology now. So what's kind of cool is an employee can go on a self-service platform and they can type into the AI genie, hey, what is my company's leave policy? And it pops up with that policy, right?
Mm-hmm.
Same thing with, how much is, what is my vacation time, or how do I accrue? What is my waiting period? Any question company related, you can type in AI anymore on that system, and it'll give a really good education piece to your employees. So I highly recommend that you have a system that does have AI. You won't get those phone calls from those employees saying, how do I do this? Or, that sort of a thing. You can just direct them directly to the self-service portal and have them type that question in. So,
yeah, I love technology,
yes.
and I'm all over it. But a lot of people get mad. They say, oh, it's this, it's that, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
To me, I go back to thinking like when cell phones first came out, because I was around in the 1900s when that happened. And so when they came out, I remember a lot of my peers, including myself, especially, we were talking about beepers yesterday. I was working for Tower Records at the time, and I can remember the exact day they gave me a Sky pager, and I was looking at them like, for what? Why do I need this?
Mm-hmm.
Right? I just didn't want that kind of a connection. And so to me, I think AI is following a similar path where people are so resistant to it, but it's going to be everywhere, no matter whether you're on board or not.
Well, something to keep in mind, because AI is brand new. So, it doesn't necessarily have those guards, those compliance guards around it right now. They're working on it, but because it's brand new, that's something that you always have to look into as far as, getting your feet wet with AI is, okay, how is this going to affect my business and that sort of thing. So, yes, definitely use it, but be knowledgeable about what you're using it for.
And be responsible.
Yes.
Yeah, Jimmy.
It hadn't even occurred to me until you said it that an employee can get so much information about their company just by using AI, and it makes perfect sense. I just hadn't thought of that. I have 4 questions And I suspect that we didn't get the automated recording from Podcast Excellence Academy regarding their sponsorship of the show. Is that correct?
You said what?
That we don't have that PEA didn't send us their advertisement for sponsoring our show.
No. I can put something up for you. You can take care of it, I think. Only because I'm busy, Jimmy.
I know, that's why I asked the question. So our sponsor is Podcast Excellence Academy. The Podcast Excellence Academy is basically a podcast management company. And so anybody that wants to or is considering having their own podcast or has a podcast and is struggling with all the post-podcast edits, or everybody likes to podcast because they like to be in front of the camera and share their information, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they want to do the hard work behind it to take full advantage of the podcast. Podcast Excellence Academy does that. You can look them up at podcastexcellenceacademy.com. If you're so inclined, go ahead and jump into their community and learn all about podcasting. Right.
Keep going, Jimmy.
Keep going.
Yeah, I need a second.
Keep going about podcasting or just talking? Okay, I'm going to go to my questions then. One of the things that you mentioned, Soleil, was mentorship. You mentioned that a couple of times. Who has been your greatest mentor, and how did they affect your developmental employment growth?
So the greatest mentor I had was when I worked for the nonprofit. She was my boss. She was an HR director. And she was a great mentor, not only professionally, but also personally. And the reason why is because there's certain ways, that you can get frustrated at work and your communication piece and that sort of thing. And over the years that I've worked with her, because I worked with her for 10 years, she had taught me roundabout ways of that communication when it comes to employees and that sort of thing. And so it was a really good mentorship having her in place. And as a result of that is what helps me mentor other people down the road is, I am one that I love sharing my knowledge. I have no problem keeping it. I would rather share my knowledge and have other people experience have this experience level that I do. And so, her mentorship helped me learn how to mentor other people.
We always communicate to both the employees that we work with and the employers that mentorship is so important, right? You just need to have somebody that can bounce ideas off, that can provide you the leadership, sometimes unsolicited, provide you the support, sometimes unsolicited, but just knowing that you have that safety net of somebody that's going to kind of keep an eye on you and give you good information to advance yourself.
In my opinion, just to add to that, it's the equivalent of having private professors, in my opinion. If you learn how to pick correctly, because I have mentors throughout all areas of my life, whether they know they're my mentor or not, some of them do. But the thing for me is it's been so valuable because I can go to somebody about any subject that I'm struggling with in my life and get a good, true answer. So to me, I think that people should really seek out good mentors and find a way to allow them into their circle.
And also become great mentors as well out of it, because there is such a shortage, unfortunately, on having those people that want to do that. So
agreed.
My next question is in regard to your reach or the reach of Freedom HCM Solutions. So do you provide HCM consulting services throughout the United States?
I do.
Okay.
So it's on national level. I do have employers that have had like international employees and that sort of thing. And I can kind of advise, but I also have partners that work well with that I can refer them to. But nationally, I do work definitely multi-state and that sort of thing.
And my direct question regarding that is, you have spoken about federal laws, right, that affect employment and employers. There are also state laws,
city laws.
My presumption is that hierarchically, the federal laws take precedence. But when you have clients throughout the United States, how does Freedom HCM stay on top of all those laws, especially, as you said, they can change quarterly?
Oh, yes, definitely. California is a prime example. So, luckily for me, I do have different things that I subscribe to that will give me an update on any compliance law issues. And then also the vendors, believe it or not, the HCM vendors, they're also keeping up on compliance laws because they have to set up payroll the way they set up payroll. And, payroll is really good about setting up payroll because they understand those changes and those laws that are coming down the pipeline and all that kind of stuff. But when it comes to the HR side of things, that's where I help build the logic. So they, with partnering with the vendors and partnering with the subscriptions that I have regarding compliance on what's coming out statewide and that sort of thing, I also am a great partner with HR consultants. And those HR consultants that are like in the different cities and stuff like that, like in the Bay Area, you have to be very careful about what city you're in for wage law and all that kind of stuff. I can partner with them and say, okay, have there been any updates? So having that network to rely on is great so that you can build it appropriately based on their organizational needs.
I personally go out of my way to avoid introducing politics into this conversation.
Mm-hmm.
But my supposition has to be that with the big, beautiful bill, specifically with regard to overtime pay, must be a potential nightmare that you guys are looking at as far as communicating the impact of that to the actual employees. Because I think employees here, and the general public here as well, where you don't have to pay taxes on your overtime income.
Right.
What does that really mean, right? The novice, right, the regular employee is just assuming, okay, all my overtime I don't have to pay taxes on. And my understanding is that's not exactly true.
Yeah, and it's communicating that piece out, especially, and it's also the same thing with the taxes on tips and all that kind of stuff. Thankfully, like I said, with the systems that are out there, payroll is very aware of what taxes need to come out of what coded wage, right? Overtime, tips, that sort of thing. And they understand. That's why I said payroll does payroll very well because they keep up on those laws, right? And so that's a good thing. It's also putting out that communication piece to the employees on what qualifies, right? So
yeah. And Lloyd may have some other questions about that because as our compliance officer, he'll he needs to know about all that sort of stuff, and he knows way more than I do. The last question is not so much a question as it is potentially an opportunity. So we're big into education. We're big into educating students so that they can prepare themselves for life, right? Not prepare themselves for college because college isn't for everybody, right?
Correct.
Not prepare themselves for the military because the military is not for everybody, but to prepare themselves for life. And you said something earlier that kind of piqued my interest in that employees that don't take advantage of the 401k, for example, don't do it because of their station in life at that moment. But I think that it would be very, very useful for the employer to show how much they care about the employee if they went through Freedom HCM Solutions and had a seminar, a webinar, some type of training where they deal with some of those issues on the front end, regardless of their age or because of their age, and let them know what the real impact is, rather than just having to say, well, this is what we have for a 401k, and then having the employee says, that's not for me, right? Without really delving into it and understanding the implications of doing or not doing. So have you thought about doing that, or are you already doing that, providing an educational piece? And if not, maybe you can work with us and we can put one together.
Oh, absolutely. I'd be happy to put together educational pieces on, like you mentioned, the 401k, the benefits of, especially when you start early, right? It really, it's getting past, it depends on the company, shall we say. if the company is willing to contribute towards that 401k, that's going to help the employee enroll. I mean, honestly, it is. But when the company doesn't do that, they just see it as money out of their check. They don't see what the end result is. So I'm happy to put that education piece in just so that people will have a better retirement in place. And something that you have to understand, I mean, even nationally, the debt for, just regular people is so high, even some sort of debt education is very lacking in where employees understand, signing up for those credit cards, signing up for student loans,
Right.
All that kind of stuff. An education piece on that, I would love to do because, it benefits people out there because they don't get that anymore.
Right. And people need to understand the upside, right?
Mhm.
That
Yeah.
I was doing some consultation over the weekend with an employee that she had an amount of money that she could put away,
Mhm.
and she wanted to know how much money she needed to put away. She had gone on ChatGPT and figured out that, like, including actuary tables and all that sort of stuff, that she needed to have $2.4 million in the bank by the time she retired in order to
Mhm.
live the lifestyle that she wanted to
Right.
live post-retirement. The good news is that we were able to calculate that at a higher return than what a lot of financial managers do now, which tends to be around the 5 to 6% range.
Right.
We were able to show that the likelihood is that with a good financial advisor, they can probably average 8%. Using those numbers, we told her that if you put together, or if you're able to put away $4,000 a month from now until you retire, which I think was like 21 years, that she would have $2.4 million sitting in her retirement fund. And that's not including the impact of, matching by the employer. So
Right.
just having those numbers that you can share with the employee would be very, very impactful. And it's disappointing that more employers don't do that on the front end and really show their employees how much they care, and that here's some real advice. This is life-changing advice.
Right.
And so we'd love to talk to you more about
Sure thing.
putting something like that together. Lloyd?
Yeah, I have one comment and one question. First off, Soleil, in your resume, I saw that you were a longtime employee, 9 years plus, at 2 different companies. Kudos to you. That is something we don't see anymore in this age of people changing jobs every 6 months or a year. To what do you attribute that longevity? Obviously, you were a great employee.
So the first one you're talking about is a nonprofit. So what was really good in that situation was the promise of career growth. I was able to grow with them up to a certain point. So as I stated, I started there as an admin assistant, making $16 an hour, that sort of thing. And then moved into HR, and I was an HR assistant, then moved up to HR coordinator, then up to HR generalist. So having that promotion and learn and being able to have more responsibility and learning more, that's what made me excel, and that's why I stayed. Now, the reason why I moved from that company, and that was also the company that I had the really strong mentor from, my boss, she had passed away, and I was like, okay, now a new chapter in my life. I want to start something new. And that's when ACA, Affordable Care Act reporting, came out, right? And I wanted to learn all about it from the very beginning. So I asked my insurance broker, who brokered our benefits over at the nonprofit, hey, if you find something that's interesting, let me know. I'm open to new opportunities. And that's when she hired me, because they had a need for someone like me to do the HCM setup. And the reason why, bottom line, is because they kind of got flipped on their ear a little bit with Zenefits coming in on benefit administration. They were getting their broker of record brokered on all of their benefit. Their clients were leaving because they got the need filled. And so I came up with a solution, streamlined their processes and everything else. And as a result of being able to have that freedom of doing what I wanted to set up my team, that's why I stayed there for as long as I did. And it was great because I learned how to run a team. I learned how to train a team and even mentor a couple of people that were underneath me to ensure that they could also carry along the process as I was there. So it was phenomenal and great. The only reason why I left the last position I was in is because I joined a small family-owned brokerage firm where they said, hey, take care of our clients and we don't hear from them. You can do whatever you want. Awesome. I had freedom of, that sort of thing. But then they sold their company to corporate.
Uh-oh.
Right. And so corporate,
tough.
they left us alone for a couple of years and that sort of thing. So we could do our own thing. But then they started doing regions, right? And started consolidating brokerage firms and all that kind of stuff. And I was the one that had the most knowledge base, unfortunately, on that team. And I didn't get corporate buy-in, shall we say, to train that team the way I have the knowledge. And so I got stuck with all of the heavy jobs and heavy lifting and stuff like that. So my hours went from 35, 40 to 50, 60 because everyone knew of the knowledge that I had. And they were like, oh, we're going to get with Soleil and have her handle this account. So I got flooded. And I lasted about a couple of years, and I said, I think I'll just start doing my own thing.
Hey, listen, real quick, because we're rapidly running out of time. I only have about a minute left, but I have to know, in this day and age of Indeed and Monster and all these other companies and people applying from literally all over the world, what's the one tip or the one trick you would give to an employee to get their resume noticed?
Oh, you know what I would do anyway is I would go to networking events. And the reason why is you get flooded with resumes, over 100 per position or whatever. And it's all bottom line in who you know. And so what I suggest to people is get yourself out there, go to networking events, start introducing yourself around and saying, hey, this is the skill level I have and that sort of thing. The person you know is going to get you in.
Hey, that's great. Thank you so much. I'll turn it back over to Kobe and Jimmy.
Yeah, I'm going to add to that and say, you young kids out there, you hear that? Back in the day, it used to be a handshake, walking in, talking to the managers and letting them see who you are as a person to get that job. And I think we're going back to that, in my opinion.
And if we're not doing it as a society, you should do it as an individual because you'll be so different from everybody else, right? Everybody else is just submitting applications online. So if you can get in the door and actually meet somebody and shake their hand, it'll go a long way.
I agree.
With that, we've come to the portion of the show that we call shameless self-promotion. So what would you like to say about Freedom HCM Solutions and how people get in touch with you? Any self-promotion that you would like to do?
Sure thing. So Freedom HCM Solutions came about because payroll is really good about implementing payroll. They understand the rules, they understand the regulations, that sort of thing. But when it comes to an HRIS or benefit administration, that sort of thing, that's where they fail because they ask the client to understand the logic that goes into building that piece out. That's where I come in and I assist the client with ensuring that that piece of it is built according to their organization's ways that they want it set up, custom. And then I ensure that it's streamlined and they can actually get a bigger bang for their buck because it's a huge investment on understanding how to utilize that system versus getting frustrated with it because it wasn't set up properly and having to go back to the manual thing. I've seen companies do that over and over again. So that's where I assist my clients. And then you can find me on freedomhcmsolutions.com. And I also do a complimentary 1 hour evaluation. If you have any issues that is happening during that time, or you have that frustration of things are not coming out right on your HR system or that sort of thing, go ahead and give me a call. I'm happy to take a look. And if it's something easy within that hour, I'll show you how to fix it.
Kudos. That is one of the best elevator speeches we've heard. That was beautiful. Thank you.
I mean, she's giving up a whole hour.
Yeah.
You guys should love that because we teach our clients to give less in a whole free hour. So I would take advantage of something like that. It's great.
Absolutely. And Toby usually closes out the show, so I'm going to ask Lloyd to go ahead and say thank you to you for being on the show, and then I will do something similar, and then we'll let Toby take us out. Lloyd?
Yeah, I just wanted to say I thoroughly enjoyed it. I enjoyed the insights, especially into what's going to happen in the future, what the employees, what they're concerned about, what the employers are concerned about, the landmines. I think that we covered a lot of ground today from somebody who's not only knowledgeable and experienced, but knows what's happening right on the front lines. And I thank you very much for your time. You were a wonderful guest. And I'm sure any other podcast you do will not be as much fun as this one.
Thank you.
And I would like to echo that. Thank you very much for agreeing to be on the show. I hope it was as comfortable and as conversational as we promised you that it would be. We are Great Employees Matter. And so we're always looking for gems. Great Employees Matter, right? So a couple of the gems that I received from you today are HR is your friend, right? HR is in fact there to be your advocate to promote and protect. So that's a gem for us. The other gem that I got is one of the best ways to seek employment is to just get out there and network, go to networking events. So thank you for both of those. Are there any other gems that you'd like to leave with our audience?
That's right on the spot.
All right, then I'll send it out with Toby.
No, I'll tell you what. We'll go back and we'll get Dale's second question and you can leave with that, Jim, and then I'll close us out. So he says, "What do you see your next direction will be in your career?" And if you can, 2 minutes or so.
So what I'm planning on doing, of course, with my business is I'm hoping to get in a position where I can hire a team so that I can train them and mentor them to do exactly what I do to help clients with their compliance needs. And so that's what I'm shooting for.
Well, I hope that answers your questions, Dale. I'm going to close up by saying first, asking you, what did you think about the show online? I'm trying to prove a point here.
I thought it was good. Definitely something that, it does keep your attention. And as far as, what's great about online instead of say anymore, you can pause it and come back to it and rewind it if there's something that you're looking for out of the podcast.
Right.
No, yeah. I mean, are we as bad as Lloyd said we were in the beginning? Because you changed his mind toward the end. He had a really positive thing to say about us as far as the company.
No, I mean, okay, so you're asking a person that this is like her first podcast, right? So the experience has been wonderful, right?
Yeah.
So,
you can't tell that this is your first podcast.
Yeah, not at all.
With that, man, hey, thanks to everybody for joining us. We always have fun here. We always try to educate, and we're trying to stay really good on employee topics so that you can navigate and get through, any particular situations that you have. So hopefully you're liking our guests. If you have any suggestions for guests, you can go ahead and check us out at www.greatemployeesmatter.com. Come check us out, come engage, and come see us. Thanks for checking us out, and we'll see you next week at 2 p.m. Greatness, excellence, and motivation always be a gem. See you.
Bye, everybody.